Here we go, episode 7, season 2 of the Hybrid Disciple, and we are really clicking through the gears now. I think I said something like that last episode. Deal with it. Sorry about that. This episode, we actually have a really cool and interesting interview with, we're going to call him an influencer, and I kind of shy away from that term, and I think Ashley kind of shies away from that term as well. But this guy kind of is an influencer. This is Nate Cottman, at From Nate with Love on Instagram and on YouTube. And this is an interview we recorded a couple of weeks back. And we really kind of dive into what Nate is doing in 2024. Nate has kind of gone through some stuff in his life, as I'm sure most of us have. He's been through a divorce. He's been through all these other things. And he has come out on the other side of that with a realization of what his platform is, who he's talking to, how he's talking to people, and I guess more importantly, what to do with all that. He's trying to train men specifically, but also women. He's trying to train people in how to have godly relationships together, how to be, dating your spouse, how to be more romantic, and how to do all those things. And if this sounds a little too touchy-feely for you, I get it. I kind of had the same feeling when I was going into the interview at first. And then all of a sudden I started talking with this dude and went, oh man, this guy's got a lot going on. So a lot of good stuff as well. So Ashley and I we dive into a little bit of what hybrid discipleship looks like in terms of the way he is using his platform. And the cool thing about what Nate is doing is that he's not overtly just hitting people in the face with a Bible. He's not overtly just screaming, this is how God wants relationships and all these other things. Instead, there's like this constant undercurrent of relationship and of love and generosity and of building other people up, especially those that you are in, romantic relationship with. So all that being said, I can't wait for you to hear this and actually a couple of the other interviews. We've got some really cool stuff coming up after Nate as well. So stay tuned for the rest of this season of the Hybrid Disciple. But here we go, episode 7 with Nate Cottman. Here on the Hybrid Disciple, we like to pride ourselves on our production value, on the way we talk to the cameras, and the way we talk to our guests. And our guest today, Nate Cottman, this is the first time I can honestly say in any podcast I've ever done that somebody has come on with a green screen behind them. So, number one, thanks for being here on the show. Number two, thanks for allowing me to put you on such places as Mars or Jupiter or Paris. Thanks so much for chiming in. We appreciate you stopping by. Let's do it. He says he's game for whatever. I was talking to him pre-show and he was like, yeah, man, whatever. You want to put me in Paris, put me in Japan, whatever. It's all good. Nate joining the program now. Ashley has been, as I've said in multiple of these, Ashley's been doing a lot of our guest wrangling, and I am eternally grateful for her in that. So Ashley, first off, tell us how you met Nate and just tell us the journey of getting him onto the show.
I started following Nate probably a year and a half ago on Instagram, and the content that he was putting out at the time, I felt you were talking, Nate, a lot about just like the importance of internal work and the importance of really assessing your role in whatever it was that was going on in your life and making sure that you're taking accountability for those things. And I felt like especially on the internet, there's a lot of people who will talk about, issues that they're having, but they don't ever want to take any sort of responsibility for them. It's just like, my life just imploded, but none of it's my fault. And I'm not going to own it's always somebody else's fault. It's always, my ex-husband or my mom or my dog or, but it's never like self-reflective and pausing and really assessing like, okay, yeah, this person contributed to whatever it was, right? But I really need to pause and look at what my role was and then do the work that you need to do to change the broken parts of yourself so that you are not repeating those cycles. And that was early on in the journey of me writing my book, which talks a ton about just how do you identify lies that you believe through trauma, and then how did those lies become a cyclical problem in your life? And I felt like at that moment, whenever I was writing all that, was whenever I came across Nate as a content creator, and it really resonated with me because so much of what I was talking about, like at the time, kind of coincided with what he was saying. And then to piggyback on that, he also talked just a lot about rooting for other people as they're going through this process for themselves. And so I followed him. I watched his content for a long time, and then I was able to hop on a Zoom call with him and said, hey, I really want to get you on for a different project that I was working on at the time. And then he got busy and I got busy, and he was recording things, and I don't know what I was doing, a myriad of things, filming commercials or whatever it was, but, you know, like whatever it was. And so then but then whenever we started ramping up for hybrid, going back for this season, what is it, 1.5? I was like, I really think that he would be great because of the content that we cover. And so then I just started harassing him like a stalker.
Well, welcome. You're the victim. You're the victim of harassment, Nate. Thanks so much. First off, let us and kind of everybody else know, what is it you kind of do in your 9-to-5 job, and like what kind of drew you into what you're doing online as well?
Yeah, for sure. So 9-to-5, I do it. First of all, thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to be here, happy to be here, honored to be here, and I love what you guys are doing. So, you know, it's an honor for sure. So in my 9-to-5-ish, right, I'm an entrepreneur. I've been a full-time entrepreneur here for 3 years. I have a consulting company. And then I do a little bit in the real estate space as well, but mostly consulting. I work with business owners, companies, to help build out some of what they're doing with marketing and with sales as well. So that's kind of my 9-to-5. That's the bread and butter. So that's the non-exciting stuff, but that's what I'm not going to say non-exciting, but I'm going to say that what I do online is a lot more interesting, right? And so in terms of what I do online, I really take the time to share from my heart when it comes to journeys, pains, past, failure, and how to go from that to healing, wholeness, health. And so that journey really started for me around August of 2022 when I began to post from my heart. And it's so funny because when I began posting, I didn't post. I didn't even post to go viral or anything like that. It was really therapeutic for me. There were just some things that I wanted to get off my chest. And we'll talk a little bit about that, but there were some things that I wanted to get off my chest that I began to make videos about. And that journey began to explode for me.
You have going through, and I've been stalking you for a little bit now, in a good way, harassing and stalking. We're probably going to go to jail after this.
I harassed you.
Yeah, exactly. He needs to get a restraining order on Hybrid Disciple. But a lot of what you do is it looks great. First of all, your videos are great. It's very professionally done and all those other things. And so for anybody interested, obviously in the show notes, we're going to have all of Nate's info, but at From Nate with Love on Instagram is kind of where I have been introduced to him. And a lot of what you do is very stylized. It's very good. It's very, like you said, to the heart. But you've transformed kind of a little bit lately, but I kind of want to back up there because you said that you started posting from the heart and it was very therapeutic. And one of the things that you said there that really caught my attention was the fact that you said, I didn't do any of this to go viral. And I think that's the key. Like people that go viral are those that are just passionate about what they're doing and that are actually posting from the heart. So like what led you to that avenue back in 2022?
Man, phenomenal question. So two very monumental events in my life caused me to realize that I really wanted to use my platform as a place of purpose and not just a place to have fun. The first event was back in 2021. I divorced my wife of 5 years. We separated in January, filed for divorce in February. April of 2021 is when that divorce was finalized. So that was the first event. The second event was in July 10th of 2022. My dad passed away. And I was with him the day that he died. And one of the things that really impacted me about his death, being there, seeing him on his deathbed and all of the things that died in him, right? And so in July, after he passed, I made the decision. I said, man, I'm not going to die with anything in me. I'm just going to share. Whether that's failures, whether that's secrets, I'm not going to die with anything in me. And so I began to go on this journey of just sharing from my heart, and it was very, very therapeutic. It was almost like, for lack of a better term, public therapy, right? Now, not that I recommend for anybody to do this. This was just my process. And I knew I had a message. I knew I had something that I needed to get off my chest. And so I began to post. And my goal was not to go viral. My goal was activity. So my goal was to film a video a day of some sort of message every single day, right? Now, that is an ambitious goal because there's a lot that goes into video editing, coming up with your message, figuring out how you're going to tailor that message to your audience. But I began that journey. That was in August. So in August, I didn't quite post every day. I just kind of posted, a few times a week. And then September came around and I said, okay, look, I'm going to post every single day. I'm going to post a reel a day. Began to post a reel a day. October came. I walked into October with 7,000 followers. By the end of October, by October 26th, I believe it was, I had 100,000 followers on Instagram, all organic. And it was a combination of consistency, potency of a message, and the fact that the things that I was talking about were very taboo, especially for a young man, especially for a young African-American man, to sit, admit his failures, talk about vulnerability, talk about the places in his heart where he may have been hurting, the things that he did wrong in his marriage, all of these things, all of these topics, my relationship with my father, the unhealed places in me. I just began to talk about these things, and people begin to gravitate to that message. So for me, it was really just starting from a place of pain and being consistent with getting that messaging out there. And then also the process of posting a video a day, I became really excellent at filming my own content. That activity of posting every day, filming every day, tweaking every day, fine-tuning every day caused me to become very, very proficient when it came to filming content.
Yeah, something that I've just really felt heavy on my heart probably in December through January is whenever you eat, sleep, and breathe the internet, which like I do and Andy does, and Nate, you obviously operate in that space as well, that God has just really put on my heart over and over is you impact over accolades. And it first and foremost helps keep me in check. Like, what are you doing this for? Like, are you putting this out because you're wanting the accolades that come with it, or the notoriety, or the likes, or the whatever? Or are you putting it out because you are genuinely trying to be impactful? And I feel like to our audience, the people that are listening, the sooner that you really lean into understanding that whatever you're putting out is impactful, like as soon as you get like, I just need to put it out because I feel like it's going to positively impact someone. And it doesn't matter if it's one someone or 100,000 someone's. When the impact is the focus, then it's like your content automatically elevates because you're no longer sitting here thinking like, man, what do I look like? Like, did I fumble that? Like if there's something that you genuinely feel like you need to share that could positively impact the world around you, regardless of what that thing may be, and you put it out, people are going to resonate with that. But if you step away from impact and start leaning into, like thinking in advance, like if I say this isn't going to go viral and then not saying it because you don't think it'll go viral, then you've kind of mixed up the message. So Nate, is there any content that you've put out? Because I know for a fact that I have, that you were like, this is just not going to hit. And then you opened your phone the next day and you're like, holy cow. Like, and it ended up radically impacting so many people that it just kind of shocked you?
For sure. So my largest video to date on Instagram, I think, has 7.3 million views. And I remember when I created that video, my sister was over my house. I said, oh, I didn't post today, right? That was my thought. Oh, I didn't post today. So I quickly set up my camera. My sister was literally laying on the couch next to me. I quickly set up my camera and I was like, okay, let me get something off my chest. And it was something that I had been thinking about, but I posted it and I didn't think that it was going to go. I mean, nothing had gone viral to that point, to that level. So it was just one of those things where it's just like, I need to post today. And so I remember it was a quick 13-second message. It said, you'll lose yourself trying to please people. You'll lose other people when you choose yourself. And if they become casualties of the war for your peace, so be it. That was the message. I edited the video really quickly. I posted it. I remember, and I didn't even, I shut my Instagram app and I went about my day. I remember coming back to my phone. Maybe it was later that night or the next day. And I remember I had gained like 5,000 followers overnight. And I was just like, whoa. And I was just like, I don't even know, like, what was it? You know what I'm saying? Like I was looking. Then I went to my reels, was looking at the views, and I saw that at the time, that video had like 400,000 views. And it was a lesson for me that when we are committed to that process, right, there are certain things, we don't know what people need, right? We just have to be obedient to whatever that process is. And so there are two pillars that I really embrace when it comes to making content. One is obedience. So I'm a man of faith. I believe in God. I believe that we need to be obedient to whatever he tells us to say. So obedience is one, and authenticity is two. Really, if I was to include a third one, it would be consistency, right? So obedience, authenticity, and then as a caveat, right, we'll say consistency as well, which is very important. But obedience and authenticity are so important, because if we're obedient to what God tells us to say, remain authentic in who we are, then that's a recipe for beautiful things to happen.
Absolutely. So one of the things that happens with me a lot, because people find out that, I run a digital church. And so then you'll have pastors and young adult pastors and youth pastors who are all over the country. And they're like, well, first off, like, how do you do that? And how do you, to your point, how do you create consistency? And I think that they feel very overwhelmed by just the concept of what you're saying, like, okay, well, I need to post something every day and I need to come up with, things to talk about. And it becomes very overwhelming for them. So a question that I get asked a lot, and we'll see if our ideology here aligns, is what would you tell somebody who's like, okay, well, so we'll say like medium to small size young adult pastors, that have medium to small size churches that know they need to live in the space because that's where their people live. Gen Z lives on the internet. And they're like, I know I need to be on the internet more. I know I need to do these things, but I'm essentially volunteering as a young adult pastor. I have a full-time real job. I'm married probably and have like 1.5 kids because I'm still in my mid-20s. So the second one hasn't come yet. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and now you're telling me in order to impact a generation, I need to consistently be on the internet. Like, what? Like, so what would you tell that person? Like, how do they be consistent when they're like, I don't even know how I'm going to pull this off?
So what I would tell them is to focus on long form. And the reason why I would say focus on long form, which my ideology about this has shifted since I first started in this space, back in 2022. In 2022, I was setting up a camera every day and I was conveying a message. For somebody that is a youth pastor, right, they are actually in a better position than I'm in because they probably bring a message every week of some sort. Or they're probably coaching or training a small staff of people, right? So my suggestion would be to begin to capture long form content. If you preach a message every week, set up a camera. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be glitzy. It doesn't have to be glamorous or whatever the case may be. Set up a camera, get you some good audio, like maybe a lapel mic or something that you can use to capture clean audio. And get that segment. It might be a 30-minute segment. It might be a 20-minute segment. Get a 20-minute segment, or even even if you start with 10 minutes, get a 10-minute segment, capture that on video. Then they have these really cool sites like Fiverr, or they have Upwork, or they have places where you can take that clip and get it over to somebody who will clip that larger long form clip up into smaller bite-sized pieces and format it for social media. Now you've done what you normally would do, which is speak a message or coach or train or develop, whatever the case may be. and you've taken that, you got it over to somebody that can do it, can clip up the videos for $15 and $20, whatever the case may be, right? And now you have something that you can post. You have content for a week, at least once a day. They should be able to clip that up into 5 to 7 pieces of content. So now you have something that you can post every day, all right? And then as you become more proficient, as you grow, then you upgrade your equipment. Maybe you build some type of small setup, kind of like what you guys have, where you got the lighting. Looks like you guys have softbox lighting, and you guys have kind of mastered the depth of field in the background and all that stuff. And that stuff comes, right? But for now, just doing what you normally do and making sure that you're capturing those moments, and then you can get it over to somebody to edit those.
I absolutely agree. I think that people like Gary Vee, he's a master at that. Like, they just follow him around and film everything the man says, and then his team chops it up and puts it out, and he puts out 5-6 videos a day, but he's not doing anything additional to what he would normally be doing. He's just filming his life. And then, there's so many like podcasters, even us. On these, they'll get chopped up and repurposed into short format. And you can even, there's an app now that I use that's AI that you pay $19 a month and you can chop up 400 minutes worth of content, like literally in 10 minutes, like plop the video in there, it chops it all up, it puts the captions on the screen, like it's done. And we'll put that in the comments. I'll have Andy put that in the description. But I agree with that 100% with what you're saying. I also think there's the concept of understanding. I tell my clients, because professionally, I do similar things to you, Nate. I'm a social media and digital marketing strategist. And so I work with clients all over the country. And one of the things I tell them is pick what you can do consistently and consistently do that. But do not start off trying to post 3 times a day, 5 days a week, right? And you start off with that momentum, and then your audience is like expecting that. And then you're like, this is too much. And now I'm only going to post 3 times a week, because it's almost like, as a single person, it's kind of like in the beginning of a dating scenario, and you're like texting all the time, and then all of a sudden the person has a really busy day and they can't text. Usually I'm the really busy person that's no longer texting and sending people into like, she doesn't like me anymore. And that's not true. It's just, I had stuff to do today and I couldn't keep that level of communication going healthily. And I think that whenever you're in ministry, you need to have a really honest conversation with yourself about what can I do consistently, healthily, and do that. Like, challenge yourself a little bit. Like, don't just be like, oh, I'm only going to post once a week, because per what the advice Nate just gave, like, you can do more, but consistently.
No, 100%. And even, even the thought of setting up a camera, maybe you don't have an audience. Maybe there's a space where you can set up a camera and talk to the camera for 10 minutes about something that you're passionate about, especially for people that are in ministry, right? Like, hopefully you're spending time with God at least once a day. Hopefully he's saying something to you, right? So it could be just taking a culmination of some of the things that God has said to you over the course of a week and doing a 10-minute video, just breaking down the nuances of what he said, right? And then, like you said, putting that into an app. I love that idea, putting that into an app and letting the app chop it up for you. Maybe make a few tweaks to it if it's a little off with AI, you know what I'm saying? And posting that. So 100%. And then there's also the idea that you take the weekends off. So you do Monday through Friday, a post every day, Monday through Friday, and then you take the weekends to rest. And so essentially all you would really need is about 20 pieces of content.
I want to go a little bit to your posting philosophy, because you are a believer. You have talked at great length in your content as well about being a believer. One of my favorite things that you do is you have the that kind of energy thing. Like, I know I don't know where that came from. Like, we can talk about that if you want, but I routinely like show those to my wife, and she'll just like giggle and nod and do all that. So thanks for that. But the idea the idea of masculinity and biblical manhood are weaved into all of your things. And have you ever gotten any pushback from anyone about that, who are saying like, nah, the men of the Bible, like, they're not doing that? Like, has there ever been that force against you?
Yeah, I would say more so people who are familiar with my journey to this point have given me pushback. right? I was married. I am not proud of the man I was when I was married. And I'm very honest about that in my content. And so for some people, it's just like, well, that's not the person that you were in your marriage. I'm like, you're right. That's not the person I was in my marriage. But that's the type of energy that I desire to give to someone one day when I do decide to take that step again, right? And so sometimes we face pushback from our past, right? And it is what it is. And the thing about it is some people have the right to feel that way, but that doesn't mean that we should allow how they feel to dictate or determine our ability to grow past where we were. Sometimes people, when they encounter us from a place of remembering, right, where we were, as opposed to acknowledging where we are. And so now when it comes to men in general, the whole concept of masculine vulnerability is taboo, because in our culture we've been taught that men don't cry and men don't express and men don't admit it and men are not in touch with their emotions. But when we look at some of the most significant characters of the Bible, Jesus, and Jesus wept, right? Jesus showed signs of being afraid in the garden. He said, listen, let this cup pass from me. You know what I'm saying? Nevertheless, not my will, but your will be done. David is the perfect example of masculine vulnerability. He was a man of war. He was a conqueror. He was a king. He was feared. He cut off the head of a giant, but he also wrote about God in a very poetic way. He wrote about women in a very poetic way. He was a musician. You know what I'm saying? And so he was very vulnerable in his writing. A beautiful picture of masculine vulnerability. And so for me, even, 75% of my following are women, right? And understandably so, because they get it. They connect with that. And I believe that over time, we'll see that number begin to change and shift a little bit as men mature, embrace masculine vulnerability, and see the value in it when it comes to connecting with the people that they love, significant others, friends, children.
That's great. There's an interesting thing also when you start talking about masculinity. The word that's usually attached to that is toxic. At least in the last 5-10 years, it's been toxic masculinity. And I love the fact that you're actually standing on biblical characters and talking about David and talking about Jesus, and we got Jeremiah and Moses. We've got a lot of the heroes of the faith were vulnerable to the point of sometimes like oversharing. Like some of the stuff David was sharing was like, yeah, this is TMI, man. Like you didn't need to go that far in that psalm, but like I love the fact that you're bringing that back. Is there, when you're kind of ideating about some of that stuff in particular, are you keeping a log book? Like, are you keeping an Apple Note going, or is it just something like, yo, I thought of this, I got to record this now? Kind of like, some, like, I know there's a bunch of artists, like they do the same thing. Like, well, if I don't get this on a piece of paper, it's gone forever. Like, what's your process there?
It's both. So there are times where I'll keep a running tab of something that I may want to build out, like an idea that I want to build out over time. So I do have an Apple Note that has different quotes and different ideas in it that I want to unpack. And then there are moments where I'll get something. It's almost like a download, and it's so potent. I'm like, yo, I have to literally post this like now, right? So it's both. And it also depends on where I'm at, like what I'm doing or where I'm at. Like sometimes a thought will come to me, or I'll be in conversation and I'll be like, oh, I gotta write that down.
So do you feel like, well, I guess, what was the shift? Like at what moment did you decide, okay, so I've been doing predominantly video content and now I'm going to shift gears and do a little bit more just like written content?
Yeah, no, sure. I felt myself getting burnt out on videos because I was posting every day. I was recording every day. And so I said, okay, I need to post every day. But I just don't feel like recording video right now. Right. And being honest with myself and saying like, yo, I'm not going to do this for other people. Like I'm not going to be in this for other people. I need to also prioritize self-care. I was just like, man, what's another way that I could communicate some thoughts? And I said, let me just try to create something written, put some music over it, and just see what it does. And I remember doing that, and then one of my posts went viral, and I'm just like, okay, here we go, here we go again, right? So now I have another way that I can approach this this task of creating content. So for me, it was just realizing that I was getting burnt out on posting or creating videos every day, and in the process of shifting more to like focusing on long form and then chopping a long form, I'm like, okay, until I have enough long form, let me go in and just begin to post these different posts. And so I thought it would be really cool to create scenarios, romantic scenarios, right? Like I've contributed to being the problem in relationships before. And so I said, man, let me just create scenarios that someone could take and use to create more intimacy with the person that they're involved with. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, I began to like paint pictures of really cool date ideas and things that you can say to someone to build intimacy, and just this beautiful picture of healthy relational involvement.
And like, I'll go on your, like, you probably are like, here she goes. Like, I'm always commenting or writing, random things. And then I'll go back and people will be responding to my response to your stuff. And I'll forget that I had written it. And I'm like, what am I even talking about here? And so I really enjoy your content. I think the key thing that I would like people to really hear that you said, though, is that content creation as a whole, whether you want to be an influencer or have that sort of like, as a single individual, you're not in ministry, but you're a believer and you want to have a positive impact on people around you. And so you decide to step into the space, or you're a young adult pastor or a media director at a church. I think the thing that I really want everyone to hear is you need to be gracious with yourself and allow yourself to pivot when necessary. Because just because you've started out doing it one way, if you start getting burnt out and then you just quit, then all of the momentum that you had, et cetera, is going to stop, first off. Second, I genuinely believe that one of the greatest tricks of Satan is to not full on throw you off your game, but it's to either distract you or get you to be burnt out where you just don't want to do it anymore. And your intentions started off really great, but you were not managing yourself well. And so instead of being like, exactly what you said, like, I've been creating these videos, they're great, but I am tired and I need to pivot, and allowing yourself to do that. I would just really encourage people who are listening, like, you may have, I have a friend of mine right now who, the way that he's processing through recovery, because he's an alcoholic, he's a phenomenal artist. And so he draws a picture a day to distract himself from drinking, and it's like his thing, and he records it. And a couple of days ago, he hit me up and he's like, I think I need to like slow this down because I'm realizing I cannot creatively draw a picture a day. And he's like, but I feel bad about it because I've been drawing a picture a day for like 95 days or something. And I said, yeah, but the thing is, if your mission is stressing you out to the point that you're off mission, then that's not good, So really leaning into the understanding that you can work very hard at something, and then you have to realize, like, okay, there might be a different way to do this where I'm not just completely jumping off ship, essentially.
That's so true. That's so true. I think that sometimes we become married to the form of content, without realizing that there are a lot of different ways to do it, right? And there are even some tools where we don't have to do it at all, right? But that's a totally different, that's a totally different conversation. But yeah, just realizing that we don't have to be married to a particular form of content. I think the most important thing is just having a plan and a strategy for content creation. And for some people, they've gotten so good at it that they really only hop on social media once a week to schedule out their post, right? So so they're doing it in advance, and they schedule out their posts. Now all they have to do is react to some comments every now and then.
So talk to us a little bit about niche. So one of the hurdles that I would say that Christian organizations or nonprofits really kind of struggle with whenever it comes to content creation and being, wanting to have some virality. And I explain to people all the time, viral is different to different people, right? So like a small creator, viral to them might be like 2,000 views and 300 likes, and like they're living on top of the world, and then you have other people like yourself that have, one video has millions of views. And so one, like getting out of the mindset that viral has to mean millions of people. It just needs to mean whoever you're directly in contact with. But then additionally, whenever it comes to a niche, what would you say to like, to a young adult pastor that's really trying to make content for everybody versus really understanding like not everyone is going to get this and that's okay, but I need to speak to this particular audience because it's going to have greater impact ultimately?
So niching down is interesting, right? Like I when I first started, I didn't have a niche in mind, right? And so I began to allow the data to speak to me, right? Like I think that sometimes we don't even know what that niche is going to be or what it looks like. But then the data begins to let you know what people are connecting with the most, right? And then as you begin to identify, okay, like this video is doing really well. What is it about this video that's causing it to do really well? This particular video, what is an audience that I can begin to extrapolate from this video, right? Like what's the topic? Am I talking about dogs? And it went crazy. That means that it's probably an audience that really enjoys hearing about dogs, right? And then you can begin to kind of like, you can almost begin to fine tune your approach as you begin to see what people gravitate to. Now, with that being said, it's still very, very important to be obedient to whatever God is telling you to post, especially in a faith-based environment, right? Like some things that you post may not be popular. Maybe it's controversial. And maybe that controversy is what caused it to catch some traction. I posted something today that was very controversial that I ended up taking down. And I didn't mean for it to be, but it just was, right? And so I ended up taking down just because I didn't want it to distract from the overall message of my page. But I was just saying that to say that sometimes we don't know what that niche is going to be, and we allow the data and the response to begin to help us fine tune and target an audience that may be receptive to our message.
There was something interesting you said there, not necessarily the controversial part, but it kind of parlays into that. How many times have you been prompted? You said you immediately get that like download thing, like, yeah, I got to post this now. How many times have you been prompted in that way to post something and then halfway through it be like, I don't know about this, man. Like, I don't know how, it's not necessarily going to be controversial, but like, I don't know how well this is going to do.
So interesting. So it's happened to me often. And a lot of times it ends up exceeding my expectations. There have been times where I got a download and it was just like, oh, okay, maybe people didn't really connect with that, or maybe I wasn't clear in my delivery of it. And so whenever something doesn't really go well, I always look at ways that I could become better, right? Like maybe I need to, I'll give you an example. Sometimes I may get a download and it may be a little bit too heady, right? Like it may be a little bit too like, it's a deeper thought, but simplicity wins. So maybe my job is to take something that may be really heady and funnel it through the filter of simplicity so that the final product is something that can be palatable to everybody, right? And it could be something as simple as vocabulary, right? Like I may post something and the vocabulary in it may be a little bit more than what your everyday person may, even feel like embracing. Like we have to realize that people could be consuming content in the bathroom. They could be consuming content, in the grocery store. And so making sure that content is something that wherever they are, they can receive it in a way that is palatable to the person that's receiving it. So if I had a long day at work and I come home and this guy is online talking about something that's super heady, probably not something that I want to hear right now. Maybe later, but not right now. Right? But if it's simple, short, sweet, to the point, it's easy for them to consume, essentially. So I always look at ways that I can become better in that approach. But there have been a few times where I got a download and it was just like, oh, that didn't really go as planned. All right, like, oh, that people didn't really embrace that in the way that I thought that they would.
What would you say content creation has taught you about, first, relational building with people that you don't actually know? Because I know I have followers that I've never met them. I will probably never meet them, but I feel like I know them because of how much they engage in my content, like because they constantly comment and they constantly share, and like, so you kind of get to know them. So what have you learned about building relationships through creating content? And then second question would be, what have you learned about your own communication styles and tactics that you didn't know before because of creating content?
Yeah, for sure. So the first part is going to be, I've learned that vulnerability wins. So when we're created in the land of social media, we're so used to seeing people's highlight reels. So everybody's perfect and everybody has a great life and everything's beautiful and everybody's making money and nobody's ever sad. And okay, that's fine for the people who that's true for, which I don't think that that's true for anybody, right? But when you're honest about the fact that you're experiencing some pain, I remember posting a video after my dad died. This was like maybe a few weeks after, or maybe like a month after my dad died, and I said, "Man, today I'm not really doing well." I said, "I miss my dad." Right? Like, I don't have anything for you guys encouraging. I just want you guys to know that I miss my dad, and if you have a loved one there, remember to hug them, remember to kiss them, remember to tell them that you love them. Right? That was my message, right? And people really gravitate to that. Why? Because there are other people that have lost loved ones, and just like, yo, I could really relate to that, right? As opposed to me getting online and trying to pretend like I'm happy. No, I'm sad today. You know what I'm saying? I miss my dad. So that's the first thing. Vulnerability wins. And then secondly, in terms of like my own ability to communicate, 3 S's: simple, short, and sweet. Simple, short, and sweet. You know what I'm saying? Like, whatever that message is, make sure it's simple, make sure it's short, and make sure it's sweet. That's really worked.
Just say there's a lot of pastors out there that need to listen to that as well. Simple, short, and sweet, please, and thank you. I got my last question. I want to shoehorn this in real quick. Is that what's the future looking like for you? Like, what do you got? What do you got coming up? What are you cooking up right now?
Man, I'm going all in on YouTube. 2024, I'm going all in on YouTube. Where I've done the Instagram thing, I've done the TikTok thing, and if I could have done this all over again, I would have started on YouTube. 187,000 YouTube subscribers is a lot different than 187 Instagram followers, right? So this year, I am focusing purely on YouTube because YouTube pays. It's just that simple. YouTube pays. And I feel like long form content is where you really build your audience. Short form content, it's almost like you build, for lack of a better word, fans, right? Like people get excited to see your short videos, but as you build out long form and people really get a chance to hear your heart and connect with you, I think it builds trust. And it gives you the ability to really build an audience that will follow you anywhere. So I'm really excited about going all in on YouTube this year.
Yeah, we were talking about before we came on that actually right after this, I'm going to have dinner with my business partner and YouTube creator that he makes fart videos. So that's how we got into that. But he's got 2.something million views, or 2.1 million followers, and he made hundreds of thousands of dollars last year monetizing his YouTube channel. And so he's being very gracious and sitting down with us to teach us all of the things that we need to do to be able to monetize. And so I think that you're absolutely on point with that. And whatever I learn, I will happily send to you in an email, because I think that, gatekeeping, I said gatekeeping information. So I think that you're right. I would say, my last question would be, whenever it comes to vulnerability in general, which you're really good at. And I feel like that's something that I lean into pretty heavily as well, is just being vulnerable with people. As you're processing vulnerability and you are sort of using your storytelling and the way that you share what's going on in your life, emotionally, present and past, right? How do you feel like that vulnerability has made you better?
Man, I just believe in not living with secrets, right? And so I'm a more authentic version of myself when I'm vulnerable. That's, and I think that there's a lot to be said about authenticity. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but it takes courage to be vulnerable. And so I feel like I've grown as a man through the process of vulnerability and encouraging other people to be vulnerable as well. So I feel like I've grown as a man. I've grown in my ability. And please keep in mind that when you're vulnerable in front of the world, a lot of times that means that you've had to have hard conversations in private with the people that you love, right? And so your ability to be vulnerable in front of the world means that you had to do some growing in private, right? And so there's just been tremendous growth, and there's been some repaired relationships because of vulnerability, and deeper relationships because of vulnerability.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so for me, that's a very, very beautiful thing.